The battle began in ways that defied everything Overlord Thexmar thought he knew about warfare. Instead of explosions and energy beams, reality itself seemed to bend and twist around the human vessel. The Soul's Pride moved through space like a fish swimming through water, but the water was the fabric of existence itself. All ships, open fire, the Overlord commanded, his 4 arms striking control surfaces with desperate fury. Destroy that ship now! 847 warships unleashed their weapons at the multiple versions of Dr. Park's vessel. Energy beams that could melt planets fired at coordinates that should have contained a target. But instead of destroying the Soul's Pride, the weapons fire simply passed through empty space, or even worse, curved back toward the ships that had fired them. Sub-Commander Vexara watched in horror as 3 of their destroyer-class vessels were hit by their own redirected weapons fire. The ship's shields held, but the psychological impact was devastating. My lord, our weapons are being turned against us somehow. The human is redirecting our energy beams. Dr. Park's voice came through the communication system, reaching every ship in the fleet simultaneously, but he wasn't using radio waves or standard communication technology. His words seemed to appear directly in the minds of everyone listening, bypassing their ears entirely. I'm not redirecting your weapons, he explained patiently, as if he were teaching a physics class. I'm simply asking the universe to remember that energy follows consciousness, not the other way around. When you fire at me, you're firing at someone whose consciousness exists in multiple states. Your weapons have to choose which version of me to hit, and I'm helping them make better choices. Overlord Thexmar felt his confidence cracking like ice under pressure. This wasn't how battles were supposed to work. There should be tactics, formations, overwhelming firepower crushing weaker opponents. Instead, he was watching his fleet fight against someone who treated the basic laws of physics as suggestions rather than absolute rules. Switch to kinetic weapons, he ordered. Fire physical projectiles. Matter cannot be redirected as easily as energy. The fleet's weapons officers adjusted their systems, loading massive metallic slugs that would travel at significant fractions of light speed. These projectiles were designed to punch through the strongest shields and armor by sheer mass and velocity. Surely consciousness couldn't affect solid matter the same way it affected energy beams. The kinetic weapons fired, sending hundreds of projectiles toward the Soul's Pride. For a moment, it looked like the attack would succeed. The metal slugs traveled through space in perfect trajectories, their targeting computers calculating exact impact points. Then the projectiles simply disappeared. Not vaporized, not deflected, but gone as if they had never existed at all. Sensor operators across the fleet frantically checked their instruments, but the readings were clear. The kinetic weapons had been fired, had traveled partway to their target, and then had simply ceased to exist. Where did they go? Sub-Commander Vexara whispered. Dr. Park's image appeared on screens across the entire fleet, his calm expression unchanged despite being surrounded by 847 hostile warships. Your projectiles are being redistributed at the atomic level. I'm not destroying them. I'm asking the universe to remember that matter and energy are just different expressions of the same fundamental forces, and consciousness, properly focused, can guide those forces. To demonstrate his point, the metal from the kinetic weapons began reappearing around the fleet, not as projectiles but as beautiful geometric sculptures that formed an empty space near each ship. The same atoms that had been launched as weapons were now arranged in complex patterns that seemed to pulse with their own inner light. This is impossible, Overlord Thexmar snarled. Matter cannot be manipulated by thought alone. There are physical laws, universal constants that cannot be changed. You're thinking too small, Dr. Park replied gently. Physical laws aren't chains that bind the universe. They're habits that consciousness has developed over billions of years. And habits can be changed if you understand them deeply enough. The Soul's Pride, still existing in multiple locations simultaneously, began moving closer to the fleet. But it wasn't approaching in a straight line. Instead, it seemed to fold space around itself, appearing to travel vast distances instantly while never actually moving faster than light. My lord, the fleet's chief science officer called from his station, we're detecting massive gravitational anomalies around the human ship, but the readings don't match any known technology.
It's as if space-time is bending to accommodate
his movement rather than being forced to bend by external forces. Overlord Thexmar realized that conventional tactics were useless against an opponent who could rewrite the rules of engagement at will. But the Void Emperors hadn't conquered 17 civilizations by giving up easily. If individual weapons couldn't touch this human, then maybe overwhelming firepower from all directions simultaneously would succeed. All ships surround the human vessel, he commanded. Form a sphere with him at the center. When I give the order, every ship fires everything they have at the same target coordinates. Even if he can redirect some of our weapons, he cannot redirect all of them. The massive fleet began moving into position. 847 warships forming a three-dimensional shell around the Soul's Pride. It was a formation designed for the complete destruction of anything caught in the center. No enemy had ever survived this tactic. Dr. Park watched the fleet movements with interest but no apparent concern. Overlord, you're still thinking in terms of conventional warfare. You see 847 ships attacking one target, but what you don't understand is that I'm not really a target anymore. What does that mean? The Overlord demanded. It means that 5 years of isolation gave me time to explore what happens when consciousness fully integrates with the quantum field that underlies all reality. I'm not just Dr. Park Wubin anymore. I'm a pattern of focused awareness that happens to remember being human. The fleet completed its formation, creating a sphere of destruction with the Soul's Pride at its center. Overlord Thexamar raised his primary arm, preparing to give the order that would unleash the combined firepower of the most powerful military force in known space. Fire everything, he commanded. Warships opened fire simultaneously. Energy weapons, kinetic projectiles, plasma torpedoes, and exotic matter disruptors all converged on the same point in space. The combined firepower was enough to crack the surface of a planet, to boil away the atmosphere of a moon, to turn solid matter into its component atoms. For several seconds, the space around the Soul's Pride was filled with the fury of an artificial star. Light brighter than a supernova blazed in the darkness. When it finally faded, every sensor in the fleet strained to see what remained of their impossible opponent. The Soul's Pride hung in space exactly where it had been before, completely undamaged. But now it seemed more solid, more present than before, as if the massive energy attack had somehow strengthened it rather than destroyed it. Dr. Park's voice reached them again, carrying a note of sadness that made even the hardened alien warriors feel a strange sense of regret. I tried to give you a chance to leave peacefully, he said, but you chose to force this confrontation. Now, I'll show you why humanity's greatest strength isn't our weapons or our numbers. It's our willingness to become whatever we need to become to protect the people we love. The Soul's Pride began to change, its form shifting and expanding in ways that hurt to look at directly. It was still recognizably a ship, but now it was also something far more fundamental, a manifestation of conscious will given form in the physical universe. Overlord Thexmar realized that he had made a terrible mistake. He hadn't been fighting a ship or even an advanced human. He had been fighting evolution itself, consciousness taking its next step towards something beyond individual existence. And now that evolution was about to show him what it truly meant to transcend the limitations of physical reality, Overlord Thexmar stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Void Render, watching as his fleet maintained perfect formation at the edge of human space. His towering form cast long shadows across the metallic deck, his forearms moving in practiced gestures as he reviewed tactical displays. The Void Emperors had conquered 17 star systems using these same formations, these same overwhelming numbers. My lord, called Sub-Commander Vexara from her position at the sensor station, we are detecting an approaching vessel. Single ship human design estimated arrival in 6 hours. Overlord Thexamar's head turned toward the display. His species had evolved from predatory pack hunters, and his instincts told him to be suspicious of anything unexpected. One ship? Are you certain the sensors are functioning correctly? Yes, my lord. The vessel appears to be alone. Its energy signature is unusual, but it's definitely a single craft. Sub-Commander Vexara paused, checking her readings again. Should I order the fleet to attack positions? The Overlord laughed, a sound like grinding metal that echoed through the bridge. One ship against 847? Either the humans have completely lost their minds, or this is some kind of desperate negotiation attempt. He walked to his command throne, a massive seat carved from black stone taken from the first world his empire had conquered. Let them approach. I want to see what pathetic offer they bring. 6 hours later, the Soul's Pride dropped out of faster-than-light travel exactly 1,000 kilometers from the Void Emperor flagship. The human vessel was small compared to the alien warship surrounding it, looking like a tiny silver bird surrounded by massive black hawks. But there was something different about it that made even the experienced alien warriors uneasy. "Open communications," Overlord Thexamar commanded. "I want to hear what this fool has to say before we destroy him." The main viewing screen activated, showing the interior of the human ship. A single man sat in what appeared to be a captain's chair, but strange cables and interfaces connected him to the ship's systems in ways that looked more biological than mechanical. Dr. Park Woo-bin appeared calm and relaxed, as if he was sitting in his home rather than surrounded by the most powerful fleet in the galaxy. "Greetings," Dr. Park said politely. "I am Dr. Park Woo-bin, representing humanity in this matter. I understand you have made certain demands regarding our colonies." Overlord Thexmar leaned forward on his throne. "You are either very brave or very stupid, human. I am Overlord Thexmar of the Void Emperors. You are surrounded by 847 warships, each capable of destroying your pathetic vessel with a single shot. Have you come to surrender?" Dr. Park smiled slightly. "Actually, I've come to suggest that you reconsider your ultimatum. Humanity declines your demands, and I recommend that you withdraw your fleet from our space." The bridge of the Void Render fell silent. Several alien officers turned to stare at the human on the screen, wondering if they had heard correctly. Sub-Commander Vexara checked her translator, thinking it must have malfunctioned. Overlord Thexmar's laugh was louder this time, filled with genuine amusement. "You recommend that I withdraw? You, sitting alone in a single ship, recommend that the mighty Void Emperor fleet retreat?" He stood up from his throne, his forearms spreading wide in a gesture of mock amazement. "Human, I think you need a demonstration of what you are facing." He turned to his weapons officer. "Target that large asteroid to our port side. All ships prepare to fire on my command." Across the fleet, 847 warships turned their weapons toward a moon-sized asteroid floating in the darkness nearby. Energy cannons, plasma torpedoes, and particle beam weapons all focused on the same target. The Overlord wanted to show this insane human exactly what awaited any planet that resisted the Void Emperors. "Fire," he commanded. Space lit up like a newborn star as hundreds of weapons fired simultaneously. The asteroid didn't just explode, it was completely vaporized, turned into glowing particles that drifted away like cosmic dust. The display of raw destructive power would have impressed any reasonable species into immediate surrender. Overlord Thexmar turned back to the viewing screen, expecting to see fear or despair on the human's face. Instead, Dr. Park was nodding thoughtfully, as if he had just witnessed an interesting scientific demonstration. "Impressive," Dr. Park said calmly. "Your weapons are quite powerful. Would you like to see what I brought?" Before the Overlord could respond, every sensor on every ship in the Void Emperor fleet began screaming warnings. Alert klaxons blared across hundreds of bridges as sensor operators struggled to understand what their instruments were telling them. "My lord," Sub-Commander Vexara's voice was tight with confusion and fear. "The human ship. It's not showing up on sensors anymore, but it's right there. We can see it, but our instruments say there's nothing there." Overlord Thexamar looked at the viewing screen. The Soul's Pride was still visible, still in the same position, but now it seemed to be flickering somehow. Not like a hologram or an image, but as if the ship existed in several places at once. "Weapons officer, lock onto that vessel and fire," the Overlord commanded. "I'm trying, my lord, but the targeting systems can't establish a lock. The ship appears to be in multiple locations simultaneously. It's impossible." Dr. Park's image on the screen remained perfectly clear and stable, even as his ship seemed to phase in and out of normal space around him. "Overlord Thexmar, 5 years ago I began exploring the boundaries between consciousness and physical reality. I discovered that the universe isn't separate from the minds that observe it. It's actually an expression of consciousness itself." "What are you talking about?" The Overlord snarled. "Use plain language, not scientific nonsense. I'm saying that your entire fleet is facing something that doesn't follow the rules you understand. Your weapons fire at where I appear to be, but consciousness can exist in multiple states simultaneously. Your sensors look for a single ship, but I've learned to be more than just one thing at one time." As if to demonstrate his point, the Soul's Pride suddenly appeared in 3 different locations around the Void Emperor fleet. Not copies or projections, but the same ship somehow existing in multiple places at once. Each version was fully real, fully functional, and fully impossible according to everything the aliens thought they knew about physics. Sub-Commander Vexara's voice cracked with panic. My lord, we're reading the same ship in 17 different positions now. All of them are real according to our sensors, but that's impossible. Overlord Thexmar felt something he hadn't experienced in decades of conquest. Genuine fear. This wasn't advanced technology or superior firepower. This was something that operated outside the basic rules that governed reality itself. What are you? He whispered. Dr. Park's smile was sad but determined. I'm what happens when a human refuses to accept that something is impossible. I'm what occurs when someone is willing to become more than human to protect the people he loves. The soul's pride, in all 17 of its simultaneous positions, began moving toward the Void Emperor fleet. Not fast, not aggressively, but with the calm certainty of someone who knew exactly what he was capable of. I gave you a chance to leave peacefully, Dr. Park said. Now let me show you why humanity doesn't need a fleet, when we have individuals willing to transcend the boundaries of what you think is possible. The emergency session continued for 12 more hours in the Coalition Command Center. Admiral Kwan sat at the head of the conference table, watching as military leaders and government officials argued about their response to Dr. Park's offer. The holographic display showed a countdown timer, 54 hours until the Void Emperor ultimatum expired. This is complete madness, declared General Kim Tae-woo from Earth's Defense Ministry. His image flickered slightly in the hologram as he spoke from his office in Seoul. We cannot base our entire defense strategy on one man's desperate gesture. Even if Dr. Park has made improvements to his ship, he's still just one person against an entire fleet. Captain Lee Soo-jin leaned forward in her chair. General, with respect, what choice do we have? Our combined fleet strength is less than 4% of theirs. If we fight conventionally, we lose. If we surrender, humanity slowly dies. At least Dr. Park's plan gives us a chance. A chance at what? The general's voice rose. At watching a brilliant scientist throw his life away? At convincing the Void Emperors that humans are insane? The Vorthak delegate, Crystal Song of Deep Waters, spoke up from her position near the viewing screens. Perhaps insanity is what you need. The Void Emperors have conquered 17 civilizations by following predictable patterns. They expect fear, negotiation, or conventional military resistance. They do not expect a single ship to challenge their entire fleet. Admiral Kwan had remained quiet during most of the debate, but now he stood up and walked to his personal workstation. Communications, connect me to the classified archives. I want everything we have on Dr. Park Woo-bin's research projects. The main display changed to show files marked with high-security classifications. Admiral Kwan had the clearance to access them, but most of the other officers did not. As he scrolled through the documents, his expression grew more thoughtful. According to these records, he said slowly, Dr. Park wasn't just working on better engines or stronger weapons. His research focused on something called consciousness interface technology. He believed that the human mind could directly control complex systems if properly connected. Captain Lee frowned. Like a neural link to ship computers? That technology exists, but it's limited and dangerous. No, Captain, not just ship computers. Dr. Park's theory suggested that consciousness could interface with the fundamental forces that hold matter together. Gravity, electromagnetic fields, even the strong and weak nuclear forces. Admiral Kwan paused, reading further. His final report before disappearing mentioned successful small-scale experiments with reality manipulation through focused consciousness. The room fell silent. Even the alien delegates seemed stunned by this information. The Nethermind representative, Cloudwalker in Storms, pulsed a deep red color that their translator converted to extreme concern. Admiral, the gas dweller said carefully, what you describe sounds like the theoretical work our scientists abandoned centuries ago. The risks were considered too great. Consciousness is not meant to directly manipulate universal forces. The feedback could destroy both mind and body. Unless, Admiral Kwan said quietly, you spent 5 years alone in space with unlimited time and resources. Perfecting the process. General Kim's image leaned forward. Are you suggesting that Dr. Park has somehow turned himself into some kind of, a living weapon? Before Admiral Kwan could answer, Communications Officer Park Min-ho called out from his station. Sir, we're receiving telemetry from long-range sensors in the outer rim. A ship matching the Soul's Pride signature is moving toward the Void Emperor fleet position. Estimated arrival time, 18 hours. What are the energy readings? Captain Lee asked. Officer Park Min-ho's face was pale as he read from his screens. Ma'am, the readings don't make sense. The ship appears to be generating power levels equal to a small star. Either our sensors are malfunctioning or Dr. Park has succeeded beyond anyone's imagination. Admiral Kwan finished. The Admiral walked back to the viewing windows and looked out at the stars. Somewhere out there, a lone human was heading toward almost certain death, carrying technology that might not even be fully understood by its creator. It was either the most heroic gesture in human history or the most elaborate suicide ever attempted. Sir. Captain Lee approached him quietly. If Dr. Park's ship is generating that much power, shouldn't we be detecting gravitational anomalies? Space-time distortions? Something that shows he's manipulating fundamental forces? Admiral Kwan turned to look at her. Captain, what if he's learned to hide those effects? What if 5 years of experimentation has taught him how to bend reality without leaving obvious traces? Across the room, Crystal Song of Deep Waters made a sound like wind chimes in a storm. Her translator converted it to amazement mixed with fear. Admiral, my people have legends about individuals who achieved unity with universal forces. We thought they were myths, stories to explain natural phenomena that our ancestors couldn't understand. What happened to these legendary individuals? General Kim asked. The Vorthak delegate's crystalline form dimmed. The stories say they became something beyond individual existence. Neither fully alive nor dead, but transformed into living expressions of cosmic forces. The legends claim they could reshape matter with their will, travel instantly across vast distances, and perceive all possible futures simultaneously. Those are just myths, General Kim protested. Ancient stories have no bearing on current reality. Perhaps, Cloudwalker and Storms interjected, pulsing thoughtfully. But every species in the galaxy has similar stories. What if these myths describe a real evolutionary possibility? What if consciousness under the right conditions can transcend physical limitations? Admiral Kwan returned to his command chair. The weight of command had never felt heavier. In less than 18 hours, they would learn whether Dr. Park, Wu Bin was a brilliant scientist with a death wish, or humanity's first step toward becoming something greater than a single species struggling to survive in a hostile galaxy. All stations, maintain yellow alert, he ordered. I want constant monitoring of the outer rim sensors. If Dr. Park succeeds, we need to be ready to provide support. If he fails, sir? Captain Lee asked. Admiral Kwan looked at the countdown timer showing 52 hours until the ultimatum expired. If he fails, Captain, then we prepare our 34 ships for the most important battle in human history. We show the galaxy that even if we can't win, we'll make the Void Emperors remember the cost of threatening Earth. The command center returned to its tense routine of monitoring and waiting. But now everyone understood that they weren't just waiting for a battle. They were waiting to discover whether humanity was ready to evolve beyond the limitations that had defined them since their first steps into space. In the darkness between stars, the Soul's Pride continued its impossible journey toward a confrontation that would reshape everyone's understanding of what was possible. The red warning lights flashed across the command center of Orbital Station Gamma. Admiral Kwan De-ho stood before the massive holographic display, his weathered hands clasped behind his back as he watched the enemy transmission replay for the third time. The alien voice was cold and mechanical, speaking through universal translators that made every word sound like a death sentence. People of Earth and her colonies, the Void Emperor's message began. You have 72 hours to surrender the worlds of New Busan, Terra Nova, and Kepler 442b to our empire. If you refuse, we will destroy every human settlement in this sector. We have 847 warships positioned at the edge of your space. Resistance is impossible. Surrender is your only option. The hologram flickered and died, leaving the command center in tense silence. Around the circular room, officers from different alien species murmured in their native tongues. The crystalline Vorthak delegates made clicking sounds that their translators turned into worried phrases. The gas-dwelling Nethermind representatives floated in their containment suits, their purple forms pulsing with anxiety. Captain Lee Soo-jin stepped forward from the group of human officers. At 32, she was the youngest fleet commander in Coalition history. with sharp eyes and a reputation for bold tactics. "Admiral, we need to mobilize every ship we have immediately. If we strike first, we might catch them off guard." Admiral Kwan turned to face her. His gray hair and lined face showed the weight of 40 years in space defense. "Captain Lee, how many ships can Earth's Navy put in the field?" 34 combat-ready vessels, sir, plus whatever support ships we can arm with basic weapons." Her voice was steady, but everyone in the room knew the numbers. 34 ships against 847 was not a battle. It was suicide. The Vorthak delegate, Ambassador Crystal Song of Deep Waters, spoke up. Her crystalline form caught the light from the displays, creating rainbow patterns on the walls. "Admiral Kwan, my people have fought the Void Emperors before. They do not make empty threats. When they say they will destroy your colonies, they mean every word. Perhaps negotiation would be wiser." "Negotiation?" Captain Lee's voice rose. "They want 3 of our most important worlds. New Busan has 2 million people. Terra Nova is our main agricultural planet, and Kepler 442b provides most of the rare metals for our ship construction. If we give them up, humanity will slowly starve and weaken until the Void Emperors come back for the rest." The Nethermind representative, Cloudwalker in Storms, pulsed a deep purple. "The mathematics are simple, young captain. Your species has fought bravely, but bravery does not change physics. Their weapons can destroy planets. Your weapons cannot." Admiral Kwan nodded slowly. The alien was right, and everyone knew it. Humanity had joined the Galactic Coalition only 50 years ago, and their technology was still catching up to the older civilizations. They had courage and cleverness, but against the Void Emperors, that might not be enough. "Sir," called Communications Officer Park Min-ho from his station across the room, "we're receiving a priority message from Earth. It's unusual." "Put it through," Admiral Kwan ordered. The holographic display activated again, but instead of showing an alien warship or a government official, it displayed a simple text message on a black background. The words were in Korean, then English, then a dozen other human languages. "Give me the coordinates of the Void Emperor fleet. I will handle this situation." Dr. Park Woo-bin, Soul's Pride. The command center fell silent. Several officers exchanged glances. Captain Lee was the first to speak. "Dr. Park Woo-bin? The physicist who disappeared 5 years ago?" Admiral Kwan's eyes widened slightly. He remembered Dr. Park well. The man had been brilliant, perhaps too brilliant for his own good. He had worked on experimental technologies that made even seasoned scientists nervous. Then one day he had simply vanished with his prototype ship, leaving behind only a note saying he needed to explore the boundaries of what was possible. "Sir," Communications Officer Park Min-ho continued, "the message is coming from the outer rim, near the Proxima sectors. Ship signature matches the Soul's Pride, but the energy readings are strange, much higher than they should be for a single vessel." Captain Lee shook her head. "This is madness. One ship against their entire fleet? Even if Dr. Park has made improvements to his vessel, it's still suicide." The Vorthak delegate's crystalline form dimmed. "I remember reading reports of this Dr. Park's research. He worked on dimensional mechanics and consciousness transfer, did he not? Very dangerous fields of study." Admiral Kwan walked to his command chair and sat down heavily. Outside the station's windows, space looked peaceful and empty, but he knew that beyond the edge of their sensor range, 847 alien warships waited like hungry wolves. In 67 hours, they would either surrender 3 worlds or watch them burn. "What do we know about Dr. Park's current capabilities?" he asked. Captain Lee accessed her tablet and pulled up old files. His ship was built around experimental quantum drives and energy conversion systems. The Soul's Pride was designed as a research vessel, not a warship. It had some defensive capabilities, but nothing that could threaten a military fleet. That was 5 years ago, Admiral Kwan pointed out. A man like Dr. Park, alone in space with unlimited time and resources, might have made significant modifications. The Nethermind representative pulsed yellow, which their translator converted to skeptical humor. Even if he has improved his single ship by 1,000%, it would still be like a small bird challenging a hurricane. The Void Emperors will destroy him in minutes. Admiral Kwan stood up again and walked to the viewing windows. Earth hung in the distance, a blue marble that had given birth to a species too stubborn to know when they were beaten. Maybe that stubbornness was humanity's greatest weakness, or maybe it was their greatest strength. Send a response to Dr. Park, he ordered. Give him the coordinates of the Void Emperor fleet. Also send him our tactical analysis of their formations and weapon capabilities. Sir? Captain Lee stepped forward. You're not seriously considering letting him attempt this alone? Admiral Kwan turned back to face the room. Captain, if Dr. Park wants to try, we have no right to stop him. And if he fails? He paused, looking at each officer and delegate in turn. If he fails, then we'll face the enemy with our 34 ships and show the galaxy that humans don't surrender, even when the odds are impossible. The message was sent, disappearing into the vast darkness of space where a lone scientist waited with his modified ship and 5 years of secret preparations. In 66 hours, they would learn if human stubbornness and ingenuity could overcome impossible odds, or if the Void Emperors would add 3 more worlds to their growing empire of conquered civilizations. What happened next was not a battle in any traditional sense. Dr. Park Woo-bin had transcended the need for weapons, shields, or tactical maneuvers. Instead, he began systematically demonstrating to the Void Emperor fleet that their understanding of reality was fundamentally incomplete. The first ship to vanish was a destroyer on the outer edge of the formation. One moment it was there, all sensors reading normal operations and a crew of 300 alien warriors at battle stations. The next moment, the space it had occupied was simply empty, as if the ship had never existed at all. Report, Overlord Thexmar shouted from his command throne. Where did the Darkness Bringer go? Sub-Commander Vexara's hands shook as she worked her sensor controls. My lord, I'm reading no debris, no energy signatures, no trace that the ship was ever there. But the crew, they're alive. Sensor sweeps show them on the surface of Void Prime, our homeworld. Somehow they've been transported across the galaxy instantly. Before the Overlord could respond, 3 more ships disappeared, then 7, then dozens at a time. Each time, the vessels simply ceased to exist in their current location, their crews safely relocated to various worlds throughout Void Emperor space. But the ships themselves were gone, their metal and technology broken down to component atoms and scattered harmlessly across the cosmos. Dr. Park's voice continued to reach every remaining vessel, but now it carried a weight that seemed to press against the consciousness of everyone who heard it. I'm not destroying your ships, he explained, his words appearing directly in their minds. I'm simply asking the universe to remember that the atoms making up your weapons were once part of stars, and stars prefer to shine rather than destroy. Your ship hulls are made from metals that were forged in the hearts of ancient suns, and those metals remember when they were light and heat, bringing life to worlds. Overlord Thexmar watched in growing terror as his mighty fleet dissolved around him. This wasn't conquest or defeat. It was transformation at a level that made conventional warfare meaningless. The human wasn't fighting them so much as he was helping reality remember better ways to arrange itself. My lord, the chief science officer called out, his voice cracking with panic. The human ship it's everywhere. Our sensors show it occupying every point in space simultaneously. It's not just in multiple locations, it's become a fundamental part of the space-time field itself. The Soul's Pride was no longer visible as a single vessel. Instead, Dr. Park's consciousness had expanded to encompass the quantum field that connected all matter and energy in the universe. He existed as a pattern of focused awareness that could manifest anywhere, anytime, in any form needed to protect humanity. How is this possible? Sub-Commander Vexara whispered, watching as another squadron of warships simply faded away like morning mist. Dr. Park's image manifested directly on the bridge of the Void Render, not transmitted through screens but appearing as a 3-dimensional presence among the alien officers. His form was translucent but solid, like a living hologram that cast shadows despite being made of light. Your species thinks of consciousness as something that happens inside individual brains, he explained, his voice gentle despite the power he was demonstrating. But consciousness is actually the fundamental force that gives rise to everything else. Matter, energy, space, time, they're all expressions of awareness becoming aware of itself. He turned to face Overlord Thexmar directly. I spent 5 years alone in deep space, learning to merge my individual awareness with the universal consciousness that connects all things. I'm not Dr. Park Woo-bin anymore, not exactly. I'm what he became when he chose to transcend the boundaries between self and cosmos. The Overlord's forearms trembled as he gripped his command throne. Around him, His bridge crew watched in stunned silence as their most fundamental assumptions about reality crumbled like sandcastles in a tide. "What do you want from us?" he asked, his voice barely above a whisper. "I want you to understand that humanity doesn't conquer worlds. We transform understanding. Your empire has spent centuries taking what others built, destroying what others created. But humans prefer to become something new, rather than simply taking what already exists." More ships disappeared, their crews safely relocated, but their weapons scattered as harmless elements across space. The great Void Emperor fleet that had terrorized 17 civilizations was dissolving like ice in sunlight. Not through destruction, but through a kind of cosmic recycling that returned every atom to more peaceful purposes. "Please," Overlord Thexmar said, and the word felt strange in his mouth. The Void Emperors had never begged, never pleaded, never shown weakness to any opponent. "My people? What will happen to my people?" Dr. Park's expression showed both compassion and infinite weariness. "Your people will have a choice. They can continue trying to build empires through force, and they'll discover that the universe contains more humans like me than you might expect. Or they can learn to create instead of conquer, to build instead of destroy." The Void Render was now the only ship remaining from the once mighty fleet. Overlord Thexmar looked around his bridge, seeing his officers' faces filled with a mixture of terror and wonder. They had witnessed something that redefined what was possible in the universe. "How many others like you exist?" he asked. "Enough," Dr. Park replied simply. "Humanity has always produced individuals willing to sacrifice everything to protect others. Some of us choose to transcend physical limitations when conventional methods aren't sufficient. We've been quietly exploring the boundaries between consciousness and reality for decades." The soul's pride began to reform around Dr. Park's manifested image, reality adjusting itself to accommodate his presence. But now the ship looked different, more integrated with the space around it, as if it had become a permanent feature of the cosmos itself. "I'm going to send you home now," Dr. Park continued. "Your entire crew, your ship, everything intact. But the weapon systems will be modified. They'll work perfectly for construction, mining, and peaceful exploration. They just won't be able to harm living beings anymore." "And if we try to rebuild our military fleet?" the Overlord asked. Dr. Park's smile was sad but determined. "Then you'll discover that consciousness is the most fundamental force in the universe, and humans have learned to work with it rather than against it. We don't want to rule other species, Overlord. We just want to be left alone to explore what we can become." Space twisted around the Void Render, and suddenly the massive ship was orbiting the Void Emperor homeworld, millions of light years from human space. The journey that should have taken months had happened instantaneously, reality bending to accommodate Dr. Park's will. As the soul's pride prepared to depart, Dr. Park's image appeared one final time on the Overlord's screen. "Tell your people what you saw here today. Tell them that humanity offers friendship to those who want peace, and transcendence to those who threaten the innocent. The choice is always yours to make." The human consciousness that had once been Dr. Park Wubin faded back into the quantum field that connected all things, leaving behind only the memory of what individual determination could accomplish when focused on protecting others. On Earth, Admiral Quan De Ho received a simple message in Dr. Park's familiar handwriting. "The Void Emperors have decided to pursue peaceful exploration instead of conquest. Humanity's colonies are safe. I'll be watching the boundaries of our space, just in case anyone else needs a reminder that humans prefer to become stronger rather than simply build bigger weapons." The galaxy had learned a new lesson. Sometimes the greatest strength comes not from building larger fleets, but from finding individuals willing to become whatever the universe needs them to become.